Here we have yet another mate battery. I don't know if this is the Founders Edition. We just received one of those and they were a little bit better quality. Actually had brand cells. And they also have this new port, which is far better than RCA. And this customer seems to have a lot of problem with the RCA as well. He has a whole bag of different RCA connectors. I think this might be our connectors that we sell. I don't know why they're in a small bag. See the charger. These are sometimes called Zenith Z311 connectors. This one is called Juliet, and there are Juliet and Higo connectors, which are good waterproofing. We have managed to get a Zenith connector, which is extremely similar in design, but is not compatible. As you can see, it looks very similar to the naked eye, but it doesn't fit. Ours has a lot smaller pins as well, but we will try and find out the name of this Juliet connector. And so they have, is it a Modiari? It's Modiari Atnan Modiari. Really good high quality charger, but it doesn't charge. It's 48 volt, and when it comes to Modiari Atnan chargers, they are mostly resting voltage when it comes to 48 volt. So you cannot measure the full voltage, but we can try and see if it trickles. I don't know which are positive and negative. Sometimes there's a diagram. I don't know if they include Juliet. Oh, they include Rosenberger, but not Juliet, unless they count the XLR as Juliet as well. Let's first measure here. Nothing. Nothing. If we're getting nothing from the battery, then most likely it's the battery. Since we don't have this connector, it's different to test with another battery. And here we can see it's actually trickling on the pins that are on the bottom side. I don't know what to call them. Maybe that is the top side. I don't know. But we're gonna open up the battery. What we find out from opening another battery is that there is a fuse for charging this. And in another battery we actually opened this up and tested the fuse, and the fuse was fine, but still didn't want to charge. So it was most likely the fuse holder was the problem. We can try this fuse as well. It's usually for discharging, but it was connected only for charging. In the other battery, similar design. See, it's working. Let's put it back so we don't forget. And let's look at the bottom here. It has a pretty nice placement of the QC Pass sticker hiding, which is the brand. We've seen this sticker many times. It usually says the inside of the battery is New Thing or FST, but this is Samsung. And in this case I actually believe them, because we opened up an identical battery before. So let's have a look here. Yeah, this one looks identical, and what we did was measuring the voltage in this connector, and it was full, but when it come to the charging port there was none. So let's have a check. In small connector, XT30, but no voltage at all. This one also needs the ignition on to be able to measure voltage in the discharging port, so we can measure there. Here it actually has 46.82. So let's see if we can have a look at the BMS. You should be careful when inserting metal thingies in the battery, but I've done this so many times, so. Oh, that was fairly easy. We're just gonna slide it out a bit. don't recall which is the BMS side. That's the hard side. So let's open it up here. Yeah, this also looks like a best way BMS. Oh, don't think it's the same as the last one. Nice. Ollie New Energy Technology. Never heard of them. How cool. A new BMS maker. It's super tiny, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I think it's pretty thick, super compact, which oh yeah, silicone wiring is bad, especially if you use silicone. You can so easily short circuit them. And but if we unpower them, it should be no problem. Do they have a spring? Yeah, they have a spring. Now it's unpowered, so now I can do what I want. Yeah, it's 2 floors, but it's not big. It's super compact, but I'm afraid it's probably the fault. Yeah, it has a small processor, a lot of components. Here we actually have something that looks like a fuse, surface mounted fuse. We don't have any specs on it, no. Assembling instructions. Gonna have to measure these tiny ones, which I hate. Lay still. This is gonna sting a bit. We have 46.85 volts, so we were getting the exact same on the discharging port, meaning the BMS is on for discharging, so discharging is no problem. It's charging that is the problem. Does it have positive go through via the BMS? How weird. Yeah, and a tiny one, but it doesn't go to any of the discharging ports, or does it? No, it doesn't. Why does it have BMS positive? Doesn't it have 14 strings here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 13, blank 14. It has 14 strings, so it shouldn't need positive, unless it's the BMS always draws power from the battery, and usually these thin wires is enough. But since this is a smart battery, it might require more than the standard milliwatts it can draw from this wire, so that may be to power the BMS. But here's this charging and charging, and the fuse is located exactly where the charging is. So let's measure this fuse. Oh. Yeah, it's a little noisy now, but shut up. Yeah. No, the fuse is not broken, because this has to be a fuse. What else would be this big? Sometimes the BMS needs just a reset. So let's put them back together and hope the silicone holds. Fucking tiny wires need tiny hands. Where's Donald Trump when you need him? Since we have positive here, also silicone wire, we can measure directly from the battery. 46.85, and discharging, the key isn't on. Discharging is not on either, but we did have it before. What we can measure is if it's the positive or the negative. In this version, the fuse actually is connected for discharging, not for charging. In the other version, the fuse was for charging. It's hard to tell with all the glue, but anyway, it's definitely the BMS. What we can do is measure a cell group or two and see if there's imbalance. If 2 cell groups are perfectly balanced, then the chance of all of them being imbalanced are almost 0. So I usually only measure some of them, especially with tiny yeasty. 3.610, 3.6, almost 10. So we will offer the customer a new BMS, hopefully a better BMS than this, and it will probably work fine again. But you can also check the fuse. It can be connected to either discharging or charging. If you had the exact model name of this Hewlett connector, that would be helpful, but I don't think it's hard to find out, and it's a lot better than the RCA. So if mate asks you to switch it out, do it. It's quite easy. They probably have this as a spare part with the XT30. It should be fairly simple to replace for anyone with 2 fingers or more. So good luck with your mate bike. Here's a little bonus content. This is the other battery that we took apart that we changed BMS on, and it's supposed to be made by Founders Edition. And yeah, the fuse holder was broken, so we have replaced it and the BMS. And it's slightly different. It also had a UART connection to 2 of the middle pins, which is kind of strange. But for this version, maybe they have some diagnostic software. They also had an EC3 connector and the same Hewlett connector. Yeah, this is the BMS for that version, and it also had most likely a 5 volt and a UART connection sending data to some diagnostic device. And let's compare the bottom plates. They're quite different, probably made by different factories. But both of them have Samsung 35E. I haven't double checked that it's 35E, but I actually believe them in this case. BMS 23 amps. Yeah, we're actually using a 20 amp BMS, but a good 20 amp BMS, which never we had any problems with. But that's for bonus content. Goodbye.